You're listening to the Real Estate Runway podcast, powered by Quattro Capital, where we are all about alternative business and investment strategies to help you amplify life and maximize wealth. Here's your host, the recovering engineer turned multifamily investor, Chad Sutton.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Runway podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sutton, and I'm joined with me today by an amazing guest, fantastic individual who Quattro Capital has had the honor of meeting and talking with on numerous occasions, Miss Anna Kelley. Anna is an impact investor, investing for meaningful impact, y'all. She's a multifamily operator with over 170 million in multifamily and vacation rental properties. So she's got the experience. And you know what? She really loves to give back. She's a real estate mentor, a speaker, and author. Like, what does this woman not have? Anna, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm so good. So honored to be here and ready for our conversation and excited about it.
Hey, the honor is all ours. Real Estate Runway and Quattro Capital are so excited to be having this conversation today. I want to hear about you, Anna. So, I know about you, but the listeners don't. Help us understand how you got to the point you did today and what your journey has been like before we get into some of the meat of the episode.
Yeah, I have got about 25 years there of stuff to kind of string along the way that, it looks like sometimes we're overnight successes. And for most companies and most overnight successes, it's been a long time coming, right? So I had a very humble beginning. And part of what makes me so passionate about impact investing is I was raised in Section 8 housing in Texas and not too far from Aaron. And so, I really didn't have anybody, Chad, to show me anything about money or financial literacy, much less investing and creating wealth. It was really about survival. And so I went down this path of just looking to escape poverty and did that the way that we're taught to do, get a good degree, get a good job, climb up the corporate ladder, work hard. And in, 45 years, you'll be able to retire and live the life you've imagined when you're old and gray, right? And so that was what I bought into. And I started out, I worked for Bank of America in their private banking department. So I started learning about investments. I was very blessed to land that job and really for the first time learn about and think about money and what to do with money once you had wealth. There was nobody that taught me how do you create wealth and how do you budget and how do you master money. But I knew once I had it, I would know what to do with it. And so I'm thankful for kind of that background. And what really got me into thinking about real estate, Chad, was I had my first baby. That first baby just started college. So this was 18 years ago. And when I had that baby, all my drive to move up the corporate ladder and be super successful in the corporate world completely took a back seat to just wanting to be a good mama and be home. And I knew at that point that my husband had a high six-figure school loan. He was just coming out of college. And I knew that I had to figure out a way to replace my six-figure income and to allow me to be home with my baby. And that really started me on the path of real estate investing. Started investing in small multifamily properties in 2007 in central Pennsylvania, lived through an economic crash, the Great Recession, where we, almost lost everything, learned resilience and grit and determination, and that I just still had that compelling vision to be home with my kiddo, to create financial freedom. And it was years of buying one rental at a time, 4-unit apartment buildings, not too sexy, but they cash flowed well and they were readily available for people that didn't have money, right? Yeah. And I started buying 4-unit apartment buildings to create financial freedom. And once I did that, once I created the six-figure income passively and created a couple $1 million net worth at that point, I knew that I had been through enough and had enough experience that it was time to start scaling and to buying bigger properties with more people. So I started doing joint ventures of, 70-unit apartment buildings, 30-unit apartment buildings, 90-unit apartment buildings, a lot like, the smaller deals that you guys got started with. And then once I did those deals, I said, okay, now I can take on the bigger deals. And since then I've syndicated, multiple large apartment buildings in a couple of different states. We're in 3 states, and some luxury high-end vacation rentals, which I really love as well. So very blessed that I stayed with it, played the long game. And now, I'm really reaping the rewards as somebody who's financially free, really living my greater purpose. And now I get to give back all day, and do deals with really great people that make an impact on other people's lives. So it's really been an incredible journey. I'm very thankful for every day.
I am so impressed you got all that into a couple of minutes. That is so much to talk about right there. And what I love about it, you're right, right? We have a saying here in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City of the country. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right? You see these musicians who they hit what you would say is a one-hit wonder. That's all people see. They look at you once you've made it big, but what they don't see is that 25 years of when the idea of inception happened, when your first baby was born, right? And all of a sudden priorities were realigned.
Yes.
And then you progress down the path of how do I do it? And you have some bumps along the way. It wasn't easy, was it?
No,
At all.
Not complicated, but hard for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if I can segue a little bit here before we get into impact investing, because that's really what I want to spend most of our time on. You're one of those rare birds who got in just before the Great Recession, and now you have seen two cycles effectively,
Yes.
because depending on who's counting, the the pandemic has quote unquote been a version of a cycle, depending how you look at it, right? There's been a
Yes.
bit of a downturn there. What are some things that helped you get through that? Like how did you said you almost lost everything, but you didn't. Almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades in my book. So how did you not lose everything?
I didn't have a lot. In 2007, we had sold everything we had in Houston. We had a nice home, and we had flipped a property and we sold that. And but we moved from a really nice home to moving in with my in-laws in 2007 to start a business and say, AIG at the time, who I worked for, gave me a 3-month trial work from home. They're like, no one works from home, but we'll let you try it for 3 months. And so I thought, well, I'll probably lose my job after 3 months because they weren't really happy about letting me do it. Now we're in an era 14 years later where everybody works from home, but back then they didn't. And so, then I just thought, let's be safe. And so we bought a building instead of leasing it, for my husband's practice, and we house hacked a 4-unit. So that's what I owned. I owned a 4-unit building that we practiced out of, a 4-unit building that we lived in and house hacked. But we had $700,000 in business startup debt with the building and about $300,000 in small business and equipment loans. And so we gave up all of our cash to start that business, but we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And at some point I was just like, we're in so much debt, we're just going to go bankrupt. But what I realized, Chad, is, my company, AIG, was in the news every day. I was threatened that I was going to lose my job every day. I lost 2/3 of my 401k in about a week because I was heavily invested in financial stocks. Thought I knew everything, thought I was smart when it came to AIG and financial stocks and equities and things like that. And I realized that it was what I didn't know that was going to hurt me. But at some point, I didn't have a lot to lose. I just had a lot of debt. But it's really, I'm so thankful for that economic crash, because it made me realize that the only thing that was going well was my investment properties. Rents kept coming in. They were easy to operate. Tenants still wanted a place to live. And I knew at that moment, if I could just get more, I would do well. But that recession's what taught me to truly become a student of the economy. I was a student of investments. I worked with uber high net worth individuals on investment products to help them expand and preserve their wealth. But I didn't know how the financial system worked, how mortgage system was so intertwined with the stocks of companies and how they were shorting, mortgage-backed securities. And I learned to become a student of economics. And what I'm thankful for is going through that hard time taught me to mitigate risk better and to kind of see risk and make better risk-adjusted investment decisions. So at the end of 2019, before the pandemic hit, I noticed we were in the longest expansion period since Abraham Lincoln was in office. And I knew we were due for a correction and a downturn. I really thought we were heading toward recession. I didn't know when exactly, but I started to sell some properties and to get really liquid so that I could weather this time. If we had another big recession, I could have enough cash to weather it and not be so afraid to lose everything like I was in '09. And
Yeah.
that served me really well when the pandemic did hit, because I was liquid enough that I didn't make moves in desperation.
Mm.
I was able to make some very measured, calculated moves to wisely navigate the pandemic. So it's made me a much better investor and a much better person who sees risks, mitigates it, and can still move forward confidently, knowing that I've mitigated everything that I can and that there's still things that could happen that may derail us.
Right, right. I love all of that. And I had when I heard you say that in your bio, I had a sneaky suspicion that the real estate probably did okay in the rental section. So I wanted to hear you say it. But the two distinctions I took from that, one of them is, yes, if you're highly leveraged in debt, right, a recession can be a bad thing if what you leveraged to for that debt does not do well, of course,
Yeah.
right? So that's always the risk. And so I love that you mentioned that really, having look, cash is king in a recession, right? Having cash, and that's easier said than done. Um, so very, very wise piece of information there. Wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for letting me segue on that for just a minute, Anna.
Sure.
I'd love to get into the meat of this episode now. And really, you are one of the people out there who is first and foremost known as an impact investor. I'd really love for you to just take us on a journey, because Quattro so buys into that. It's part of our four pillars: people, property, profit, and philanthropy. But you just embody this. And what is an impact investor, and how can it increase your ROI, NOI, and returns just by being good to people? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, impact investing to me came again from just a place of compassion, right? Because there are investors that go, "Oh, great, you create an impact. Sure, great. Yeah, we like to have community events too. We do movie nights in our apartments." And I'm like, "Okay, you're having fun for your residents, but it's not really that impact." And sometimes the impact, the passion for that comes from experience and compassion, right? And growing up in Section 8 housing and working with inner city youth in Texas for years, and going on missions trips where we worked with really, extreme poverty in Russia and orphanages that had a level of poverty that I never knew or saw, even being, poor in America, gave me this heart from a very young age to say, I want to impact people that are the least of these. I want to teach them to have hope, right? Have hope and faith that things are going to be okay, confidence in themselves that they can get out of the cycle of poverty, and teach them the tools, teach them to fish, not give them fish, but teach them to fish so that they can get out of their situation and move forward into the life of purpose that they're designed to do. And so I always knew I wanted to make an impact. And I started out just doing it in small ways. You have a pandemic and you have people that are struggling and you need them to pay rent, but you care about them and you want to be able to help them to do things like, let me show you and print out the unemployment paperwork and show you how to fill it out. Or let me show you how to go get a PPP loan for your landscaping business so that you can get ahead. And let me put you on a small payment plan to let you pay us slowly until you get ahead. Or that single mom that can't pay rent because she tells you she just had a baby and she can't pay for diapers. Show up and buy her a pack of diapers and give her a card and a hug and tell her, you can pay me a couple weeks late. When you are good to people, what you find is that everything else works out. They remember, and the tenants are more committed to you because they know that you care. And then when things do happen, like a lost job or a pandemic, they're faithful to pay because they know you care and they want to live in a community of people that care about each other. They'll tell other tenants about you. Other really good tenants move in, and you minimize the attrition. You minimize the people moving out because they know they're in a community that cares about them. And what that does is it makes vacancies go way down. It makes collection losses go down. And it builds goodwill in the community where you're now the apartment that everybody wants to live in instead of the one that everybody's leaving. So you're doing right by really caring about people. And what I have found is that when you're good to people, God blesses you in return. And the numbers just do better. You think, oh, I can't afford to give up, a unit, or I can't afford to give up, $10,000 a year to financial literacy programs for my tenants. But when you do that and you build it into your business plan, it actually can be something that juices your ROI because of the impact that it creates and makes you a better operator, creates stronger returns for yourself and your investors while you're really doing well by the people that you're investing in. And to me, that's the perfect investment.
Wow, we could just mic drop right there and end the episode, and that would be some of the best content I think we've ever put on this show. And Anna, so many pieces of wisdom there, because in the universe, in the world today, whatever you want to look at it like, whatever you put off, you receive. If you're looking for something, you have to give it off and it will come back to you, right? And when you put off goodwill like that to people, for example, you hit one right on the head, and it's very raw in a lot of people's minds right now, because a lot of our listeners are active owners, right? Pandemic hit, some people stopped paying rent. Well, guess what? If you were adversarial with those residents, they probably became adversarial with you,
Yes.
right? Whereas I'm speaking specifically on some of our Atlanta and Knoxville properties where we had a little more, a little more trouble. you know, we had to be proactive. We had to knock on everyone's door and saying, hey, I hope you're being safe. Here's the guidelines from the CDC. Make sure you're doing XYZ. By the way, if you're truly having trouble, here's a form, prove it to us, and we'll work with you. Right. We're not in the business of, when flat screen TV showed up at the dumpster after stimulus checks, that was a different story.
Right.
But, for those who truly were just needing a hand or a moment to breathe, you let them breathe, and then
Yeah.
they came back with so much success, and fixed the problem they were having, right, when you just give them a
Yeah.
little bit of help. And that's just the monetary side.
Yeah.
So what are some, I mean, you've kind of become an expert in, let me back up. I'm a numbers guy. It's very easy to say, I'm going to go spend this much money on a unit and I'm going to get this much in rent. That is a direct ROI connection, right?
Yes.
What are some other ways that you've figured out how to just exude, you know, goodness into the world and actually see it juice your ROI as well? I mean, that's a fascinating concept, and you have to open your mind to think about it that way, right?
Yeah. Yes. I think as investors, when you really want something, you learn to get creative to figure out how to do it. Right. And so there may be times, early on when I started out, I needed every tenant to pay rent every single month, or I chance not being able to make my mortgage payment or pay the taxes. Right. So when you don't have a lot, you're really desperate for everybody to pay. Right. And when we get started, we don't build in enough for vacancy losses and credit losses. And we just think, oh, we'll build it into our underwriting, but it's never going to happen, right? I'm always going to have 2% vacant and everybody's going to pay. And it doesn't really happen like that, especially in a pandemic. But one of the things that I asked myself early on was, I don't have to wait till I have hundreds of units to impact my community and my tenants. So what can I do? It needs to be a goal, just like I have a financial goal. And in my asset management calls, I need to say, where are our leases and how many people are not going to renew? And where are you on traffic? Where are you on impact? What are you doing this quarter to impact our residents, right? Make it a line item that you're looking at, one of your KPIs. And it doesn't always have to be some big earth-shattering expensive thing. I'll give you an example. I'm not a general partner in this investment, but I'm a limited partner in an investment in Irving, Texas, with another group where our core values are aligned, and they are all about impact investing. And our community, this apartment complex, it's a C to C minus type of property in a C plus to B minus area. And it's lower income residents. And what they did is, all of us past investors, they sent an email out and said, hey, we're going to partner with a children's hunger fund who's going to bring backpacks for all of our kids. They want to pour into an apartment, and we're welcoming them to adopt our complex, come in, buy them backpacks. Will you as investors pay for and buy school supplies to put in the backpacks? will you send us little Bible verses to put on their bookmarks to encourage the kids and let them know that God loves them? Like just those small little things, Chad, they don't need a huge line item on the ROI. But if I tell my property managers impacting this community is important to me, why don't you reach out to the other local organizations like Children's Hunger Fund or like a local church or a local food bank and see if they'll adopt our complex and come do an event like the backpack school drive. So that's just one small example where, we pour into the lives of those kids. And during a pandemic, when their parents are having to try to work 2 jobs to make ends meet and their kids are latchkey and at home by themselves, to have an organization that'll bring them a free sack lunch every day, those kind of things make those mamas who they're heartbroken that they have to leave their babies at home. They can't go to school and they're working 2 jobs to make ends meet, but they know that their kids are safe in our community. They're paying rent. They're getting their stimulus checks and they're paying rent because they want to stay in that community. They don't want to get evicted and move somewhere where people don't care. So that's just a small example of when I saw that as a passive investor, I said, okay, I need to adopt that one small thing in all the complexes that I buy. And if it's an upper end complex, maybe it's not, backpacks for kids. Maybe it's help with writing resumes so that you can get better jobs when you have mass layoffs. There's all kinds of things that we can do where if we partner with the community, it doesn't require us doing all the work and spending all the time and money to create that impact.
Wow. That's just amazing. And what you did, you just reminded me of a similar story that I heard from one of our management groups the other day. We had taken over a property, a small one, from a large group in a submarket of Nashville. And there was this poor woman, handicapped, she'd been waiting for an apartment, and they put her on a second-story apartment in a wheelchair. She had to scoot up and down the stairs every day to get out and go to work, and she quit paying rent when the pandemic happened because she's frustrated, right? And feels like no one cares about her. First thing we did, as soon as we discovered that, we had no idea. As soon as we discovered that about the first month of ownership, we arranged and actually funded moving her to a downstairs apartment, relocated someone else. You want to talk about a happy resident, someone who's singing our praises and who just appreciates that we cared. It's not hard to care, guys. It doesn't take money to
Right?
care, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just wow, fantastic. Have you heard about the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit coming up on January 20th? If you've never been, it's a 3-day information packed event for multifamily investors with over 1,000 attendees and over 50 speakers. Not only will you hear from experts about finding deals, raising capital, underwriting strategies, selecting markets, and so much more, but this year, our partners here at Quattro Capital are excited to be participating with 3 speakers at the event. Our amazing Kim Wendland will be speaking on the often neglected subject of asset management, how to make the machine hum. While our most interesting man in real estate, Maurice Philogene, will be speaking on how to leave your corporate job for a freedom lifestyle. I personally will even be speaking on the topic of how to perform due diligence on multifamily assets before you purchase them, and the not so common things to watch out for. Go to mfinsummit.com to grab your ticket and use promo code Quattro to get $100 off of your full access pass. Whether you are new to multifamily investing or a seasoned investor, you do not want to miss this event. Join Team Quattro at the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit. Visit mfinsummit.com, promo code Quattro. That's mfinsummit.com, promo code Quattro. Well, Anna, this has been, mic drop moment right and left. This is just impact investing at its best. I so appreciate you coming on. Before I let you go, you have to go through the Quattro Trio, 3 little questions that we ask everyone who comes on the show. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right. So the first one is, what is your superpower as it relates to your business?
My superpower is that the impact comes first, the numbers come second. And when you put both of them in their proper order, people over profits, the profits come and everything else falls in place, truly.
Fantastic. And the next part is we just listened to so many ways that you're awesome, but I need a little bit of dirt. Tell me what your biggest failure is and what it taught you.
Oh, my biggest failure was 2009, thinking that I was smarter than other people going into a lot of debt to start a business when most businesses fail in the first year to 5 years. I called in to Dave Ramsey, the one that says get out of debt. And I called in after 7 years of living on beans and rice and paying off my husband's school loan. And we called and said, we're debt free, but we want to go into debt to start a business. And he said, don't do it. You'll lose everything. And I was like, he's good for the beginners, but I work for a financial firm and you got to go into debt to start a business. And I thought that I was smarter than Dave Ramsey, thought I was smarter than a lot of others who statistically didn't do well. And my husband and I kind of pushed him into starting a business. He's not an entrepreneur. And I pushed him to become an entrepreneur because I was desperate to be home with my kids, went into $700,000 of debt at the height of the economy. And because of that, it took me many more years to struggle and get out from under that debt to create financial freedom than it would have if I had listened to the wisdom of others that came before me.
Wow. We should, if you guys are listening to this at home, stop, rewind about 15 seconds and listen to that again, because you can't get that advice anywhere else. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. I've got to brag on you a little bit. You are a 4 times Amazon #1 bestseller on a certain book. What is it called and where can we find it? I guess Amazon.
Great.
Right?
So my most recent book is called Bringing Value, Solving Problems, and Leaving a Legacy. And I really talk in there with a group of other authors about really investing for meaningful impact, investing for a greater purpose that's beyond yourself. And when you invest to leave a legacy in the lives of other people, it just is it makes every day a joy to wake up. And so I'm happy to give any of your listeners and send them a free signed copy if you would like. You can just email me at info@reimom.com, and I'm happy to provide that for you and your listeners.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And listeners, that will be in the show notes. So just scroll down and you'll find info@reimom.com down there. And last but not least, certainly not least, one of Quattro's 4 pillars is philanthropy. Tell us what philanthropy you primarily support and what our listeners can support on your behalf.
Awesome. Yeah, primarily I'm involved in supporting missionaries all over the world that really want to bring the love of God into people and just pour into them, and in tangible ways as well. And one of those is called Hope for Youth. So Hope for Youth, hopeforyouth.org, is an inner city youth organization that's in Houston, Texas, that I worked with for many, many years, impacting the lives of inner city kids and really giving them hope for youth, that they can get out of really difficult environments, that they can create their own path. And the tangible lives that I've seen changed, students become doctors and real estate investors, and really successful people who are going back and now working for Hope for Youth and pouring into the lives of others in turn, is really a phenomenal organization, one that I've been involved with. It's been close to my heart for over 20 years. So anyone that's looking for a great organization to pour into that really does make that kind of impact day in and day out, I'd encourage you to visit hopeforyouth.org.
Fantastic. You really can't put a value on helping children because they can't help the hand they were dealt sometimes, right? You could argue adults have made their decisions, and had a chance, but children, they have the cards they were dealt, and any hand up, that you can give a child will only make our world a better place. Thank you for that so much, Anna. This has been a hugely impactful episode, especially on the concept of impact investing. Like I don't think we've had better verbiage on that concept to date. So I really appreciate you. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they choose to do so?
Thank you so much, Chad. So you can follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram at Anna Mom Kelley. And my website is greaterpurposecapital.com, where you can learn about syndications and projects where we go in to invest for meaningful impact.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being on the show. Everyone, this has been a super impactful episode of the Real Estate Runway podcast. Until next time, I'm your host, Chad Sutton. Over and out.
We hope this episode was insightful and brought value to your day. If so, please be awesome and leave us a 5-star review. Find out how Team Quattro can help you at thequattroway.com. Until next time, this is the Real Estate Runway podcast.